and the suit tag I wasn't meant to read. I make other people look like their best decisions. That's what a bespoke suit is if you strip away the romance, measuring the truth and teaching fabric to keep it. My shop is narrow, all mirrors and patience. Clients come in with shoulders that don't know what to do and leave standing like promises. For years that was enough. Cloth behaves if you cut it right. People too, I believed, if you gave them the right seams. Nadia loved that line. "You and your seams," she'd say, drawing circles on my wrist while I pinned a hem on a mannequin. She ran publicity for a foundation that thinks money becomes moral if it's lit correctly. We were good in the way two people with late calendars can be, breakfasts that tasted like triumph, a bed that forgave, messages that said I'm on my way and meant it. When I pictured the future, it wore something I'd made and smelled like her. The tag showed up on a Wednesday pretending to be a Tuesday. A new client, name on the door, something European and self-assured, booked a rush order for a gala. I had him on the stand, chalk whispering along the wool when I reached into the inside pocket of his jacket to check a lining and my fingers found cardboard. Suit tags come to me like confessions. I pull them, scan, toss. This one fought my hand, taped deep, and my eye snagged on the handwriting at the bottom. Not a factory scrawl. A neat, impatient hand I'd know on a blank wall. Nadia. The tag was a return authorization from a boutique that styles the kind of men who call me later to fix the lie. Stapled to it, a smaller square, a wardrobe instruction card from a hotel with brass that pretends it doesn't squeak. Client name blank, suite number printed by a clerk in a hurry. The note section read, "Deliver Navy to balcony, same as before." And at the top, the initials NV in a quick pen I used to watch leave lipstick stains on coffee lids. "Problem?" my client asked, arms out like a cross, eyes on his reflection the way a person stares at proof. "Button stance," I said smoothly, and carried the jacket to the counter like a bomb that only I could hear ticking. I could have thrown the tag into the trash. I could have chalked and cut and steamed a perfect shoulder and told myself that fabric is fact and the rest is rumor. Instead, I slid the card into my drawer beside the tape measure that was my father, and worked in a silence that scared me with how practiced it felt. Clients talk, tailors listen. He told me he was new in town, that his assistant had found me because a chef mentioned a cuff I'd tamed, that he had to look inevitable by Friday. He asked about lapels because men who want to be read a certain way always ask about lapels. I answered in a language we both pretended was neutral. When he left, I locked the door, closed the blinds, and took the tag out like a man taking a ring off a finger to see if there's a mark. I recognize Nadia's hurry. It's in the slant of her V, the hard stop of her N. She prints like a person who plans to be quoted. The hotel's name tasted like expense. The suite number sat there with a dignity numbers think they've earned. The note about the balcony made my mouth dry. At home, I cooked what I always cooked on Wednesdays, pasta with garlic and whatever green the market says is seasonal. Rituals keep rooms together. She came in carrying a storm of emails and kissed me with a softness that only happens when the day tried to bite and failed. We ate at the counter, hips touching, the way we do when we are a team, and she told me about a donor who wants his name without anyone knowing he wants it. Mid-story, her phone lit up and turned face down. It was nothing. It was a small neon sign. "Big week," I said. She smiled without using all her face. "Gala meetings," she said, "plus a private dinner on the river. You know how they are." I did. I also knew the hotel on the river with the brass and the balconies, and the habit of believing privacy is a brand. Nadia's hands found my neck. We moved toward the bedroom with the sleepy hunger of people who know each other's shortcuts, and I let it be our language because sometimes bodies negotiate what words cannot. The heat was there, low and confident, a path we've walked and still find new. After, with her hair on my chest and my heartbeat steadying under her ear, I nearly said, "Did you write your initials on a stranger's suit tag today?" Instead, I said, "Stay home tomorrow. I'll make lunch." "I can't," she murmured, "but I'll send a photo of the view." She meant the foundation's roof. I pictured the river anyway and hated my imagination for being so helpful. The next day, the boutique called about a rush courier. "We have a garment for Mr. Novik," the woman said smoothly, and gave me the suite number unasked, the one printed on the card in my drawer. "We were told your shop handles his alterations." "We do," I said, lying like a professional. "Can you deliver to the balcony again?" she said, like this was a normal request in a normal city. "I prefer doorways," I said. "I also prefer names." "His assistant is handling," she said. "Initials NV. She said the balcony is faster." "Naturally," I said, and gave her a time that would let me choose who I was going to be when I arrived. "I dress the way you do when you want to be undeniable without drawing a map. Soft suit, white shirt, no tie. I packed pins and chalk and a face that can pass for service. At the hotel, a concierge with teeth that looked expensive to maintain smiled and gave me a key card embossed with the suite number I already knew. They requested balcony entry," he said conspiratorially, as if he were letting me in on a joke that has never been funny. "Balcony doors are bad at being doors. They like to pretend the outside is a room. I stepped onto stone and a view that makes people confess." The wind carried the river's clean metal smell. Through the glass I saw the edge of a table, glitter of a bottle, a jacket over a chair. The sliding door whispered. Nadia stepped out wearing the navy dress she uses to get people to agree with her, hair pinned like an argument. She blinked at me, the shock not frightening so much as informative. Her eyes did a fast inventory of the universe and landed on me like a decision. "Your assistant asked for balcony delivery," I said, holding the suit bag. My voice used the same temperature I use with men who think a peak lapel can fix a marriage. "I don't have an assistant," she said. It was honest and not enough. We stood with more air between us than the balcony could account for. Behind her, a man laughed from the next room. I knew the voice from panels and donor summits and the kind of television you leave on in hotel rooms to feel like somebody else's life is happening. He stepped into view, jacketless, sleeves rolled, a certain ease. Not the client from my stand. Not my imagination. Very much a person in my wife's afternoon. "Leo," Nadia said. "This is Lyle. He chairs the foundation board. We were just picking a cuff," I said and lifted the suit bag. "Humor is a tool that can cut both ways. He prefers a softer shoulder." "Always," Lyle said, undisturbed, like men who think rooms are drawn to them often are. He extended a hand I didn't take. Then he did a smart thing and went inside, closing the glass behind him, leaving us with the sound of the river and the quieter sound of a promise failing to hold. "Say it," Nadia said, not defiant, just ready to stop pretending. "I found your initials," I said, "on a tag that hid in another man's pocket. I found a note about a balcony. I brought the suit to see if the story would lie to my face or have the decency to be true." "It's true," she said. "Not the part you think is largest, but the part you fear. I am here with him." "How many times?" I said. I kept my voice flat and it felt like carrying glass. "3," she said. The number was small and not small. It started with work, continued with being seen, and then became something that looked like an escape until it was. "Why him?" I said. "You don't owe me poetry, you owe me accuracy." "He looks at me like I write futures," she said. "Like my emails bend the world. He listens when I talk about the boring parts of power. And you. Fix seams, I said. You fix everything, she said. Even me, especially me. Sometimes I wanted to be loved without being improved. The worst thing about the truth is how often it resembles an insult you don't want to counter because you know it's earned. I looked at her mouth and remembered every way it had ever saved me. I looked at her hands and remembered them anchoring me when storms tried to rename us. And I looked at the door and remembered I had feet. End it, I said. Here, not with an email you can rewrite, not with a perfect statement, with a sentence that makes a room colder. I did, she said, surprising me with the past tense. Before I texted you about the view yesterday, before I looked in the mirror today, before you arrived, I told him we're choosing the foundation and not the fire. The sliding door opened a crack. Lyle's voice stayed low. I'll see you at 9, he said, as if he had always been the kind of man who chooses his exits. He left without offering me a hand again, which was both cowardice and courtesy. Nadia stood very still. I should have told you last week, she said. I should have told me before that. You told the balcony, I said, and hated how good I am at cruelty when tired. Do you want me to go home? She asked. Or do you want me to pack a bag and give you the same river from a different window for a while? Come home, I said. If we're going to break, we can at least break in our own bed. If we're going to mend, the thread should taste like us. We walked the hallway like a corridor in a courthouse we hadn't agreed to enter. In the elevator, she pressed her shoulder against mine, and I let it stay. In the lobby, the concierge gave me a look that said he'd seen a century of versions of us in a week. We went outside. The city behaved like it didn't notice. At home, we didn't perform. We made eggs and didn't eat them. We sat at the table with the suit tag between us like a witness. Nadia told me the story with the timeline that matters, the one that names the first moment you let the tide touch your ankle and pretend it's weather. I told her the story she doesn't like, how often I try to solve her when all she wanted was to be held uncorrected. We didn't win. We reconciled two data sets and discovered overlap. We tried the small things because grand gestures are easy and unreliable. Thursday nights became unbookable. Phones went face up because secrets hate light. I promised not to measure our days into improvements. She promised not to treat attention like an applause break she had to go find. We made love like people who aren't auditioning, slow and insisting, mouths remembering and teaching at once. We stopped when stopping felt more intimate than pushing through. In the dark, I put my hand on her lower back, and she breathed into it like she was returning something she had borrowed. Later, the client with Nadia's initials in his jacket came for a fitting. He admired himself with the alarmed joy people feel when a mirror is kinder than their memory. As I worked, he tried small talk that kept turning toward the gala, toward women in navy dresses who make rooms purr. I kept my needle moving. When he paid, he slipped a folded card across the counter. "If you ever need an introduction," he said. "I don't," I said gently and slid the card back. "But thank you for keeping your suits honest." He frowned, confused, then shrugged his way back into the city, shoulders behaving. We met Lyle again, of course. Foundations are villages with better catering. He spoke to me with professional warmth and personal absence. Good. That's what grown men owe each other when they've both been at the same table with the same bottle and different futures. For the gala, Nadia wore black, not navy, and I noticed the non-accident like a secret handshake. When she stood to speak, I watched her turn money into motion with sentences that found what people wanted to believe about themselves and made it glow. When she left the stage, she leaned down where I stood at the back and kissed my cheek. Not possession, territory reclaimed. A month after the balcony, I got a text from a number I didn't know but felt. "New client. Needs rush. Deliver to door, not balcony. Code sent separately. The initials at the end were not NV. They were mine, written by Nadia. I laughed in my silent, grateful way and wrote back sure, knowing she'd meant what she was really telling me. This time, we carry what needs carrying together through a door that opens from inside. People still bring me suits and secrets. They confide in mirrors. They ask whether a slightly wider lapel will make them look like a better husband. I hem their asks into something that won't embarrass them later. Sometimes a man looks at himself with awe, and I remember the first time I saw myself in Nadia's eyes and believed I could be better than my worst habit. Sometimes a woman waits on the leather bench while I chalk and our glances say brave things without making a mess. The suit tag lives in my drawer, not as evidence but as instruction. On hard mornings I take it out and run my thumb over the ink and remind myself that labels tell you less than seams. That if you want a thing to last, you don't just choose good cloth. You learn how to press without flattening, how to steam without erasing, how to let it hang so gravity becomes a collaborator. I touch the old tape measure that was my father's, and I measure the day, and I cut accordingly. At night, Nadia sometimes reads to me from her laptop, the parts of her emails that made a room move. I tell her where she left a seam open and she tells me to shut up and kiss her, and I do, and I try not to edit the kiss into a better version of itself. When she laughs, it lands in my hands the way chalk dust used to when I worked too fast. I clean it away with my mouth. She bites my shoulder just enough to claim geography. We go to sleep with our legs stitched together, and the window open so the city can listen if it wants and learn that the way back from a balcony isn't magic. It's habit. It's choosing the right doorway again and again, even when another opens easily. People think the spine of a suit is the canvas. They're half right. The real spine is the wearer deciding to carry it. Love is not different. The day I stopped trying to tailor Nadia into perfection and started fitting our life around the truth, the cloth relaxed. It wore us. We wore it. In the mirror, I looked like my best decision, and for once I had not made it alone.